Hello, everyone, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of Jurassic World Rebirth, the fourth film in the Jurassic World franchise and the seventh film in the overall collection of Jurassic Park films. This film stars Scarlett Johansson, Mahershala Ali, and Jonathan Bailey, directed by Gareth Edwards, who gave us Godzilla, one of the Godzilla films in the recent, I don't know what, 15 years, and is written by David Koepp, who not directed, but he wrote the original Jurassic Park film. And to say that the Jurassic World portion of this franchise has been the law of diminishing returns would be a understatement. It is not lived up to the Jurassic Park lore. But to be fair and honest, none of the films lived up to the Jurassic Park lore. After the first film, everything else is whatever. You know, that first film was so magical, so I don't know, exciting, adventurous, and everything that you expect from a Steven Spielberg film in that time of his career, at that particular peak Steven Spielberg lore. And everything after that was whatever. You know, to put it plainly, it was whatever. And so we get Jurassic World Rebirth, and to be honest with you, I questioned when they announced this film. Do we really want a Jurassic World film? Do we want a Jurassic anything after Jurassic World Dominion? The final, well, not the final, but the last film in the franchise. I thought that was it. You know, it was over. It was done because it got so silly and convoluted with these plots and these genetically engineered dinosaurs and everything. It lost its lure, at least for me. And so I was done with the franchise. And they announced this film, but it was supposed to kind of reboot in a sense and restart the franchise in a different direction. And so, okay, color me interested. You know, I'm still a sucker for a good Jurassic Park / Jurassic World film. So let's check it out. This film, for the most part, I enjoyed. I actually had a good time with the movie. Is it more style than substance? Yes. The story, the plot is completely ridiculous. You know, we got to go to this island where the dinosaurs are and retrieve DNA from the three most dangerous dinosaurs that's on Earth. And it's stupid. It was a stupid one from land, one from sea, one from air. I'm like, what is this? Avatar: The Last Airbender? I don't know what are we doing here? And it was just a silly plot. You know, the characters aren't well developed. The motivation isn't there. Getting behind a character, the hero, I guess that's supposed to be the Scarlett Johansson character, really couldn't get behind her because it was no story. She was just there. If anybody had a story, it was Mahershala Ali character. He had an actual backstory, even though they didn't dive deep into it. This movie moves quick. It's a quick movie to say that it's over 2 hours long. The movie is fast paced, and I did appreciate it for that. You know, that's not a knock. It was just no time to develop story or characters. It is an odd thing for a 2 hour plus movie. Now, you go to these films, if you're one of the many, you just go to the films for the dinosaurs. You get plenty of that. There's a lot of dinosaurs here. There's no particular dinosaur that outshines the other. You know, we're on to the next one as soon as we encounter another, you know, and we never revisit the one that we encountered before. It's odd. It's very odd the way that was set up. It was just, I don't know, man. It's not a complete mess of a movie. It's not a terrible movie I heard it described as, but it's not super good either. It's just falls dead smack in the middle. And when you have a summer blockbuster film like this, it can't fall in the middle. You need it to exceed in some shape, form, or fashion. I went into this not expecting a super complex plot. You know, going by the trailers and piecing the story together through that, I I was not intrigued by it anyway. So I did not go into this looking for story. I guess that's why I walked away all right with it because I knew I wasn't going to get a story. I was mainly there for the adventure aspect of it. And that was kind of weak. The one element that I did like was the family. There was a family, a rogue family, I guess you can say, that got swept up in our A plot in this film. I actually enjoyed them, you know, following them. And even with those characters, there was no development, you know, it was sloppily done. And that's weird coming from David Koepp, who has written some really good films, you know. He has a really good resume. It feels like he had some plot points that he wanted to hit and just loaded that into Chat GPT and let that write the rest of the movie because this movie moved really quick in development. It was like, okay, let's write the script. They wrote the script in like a month, and then they hired the director right after that. And this is all within the last year. And they hired the director, and voila, they went out, they hurried up and shot the film, I think, in the course of 3 months, 3 or 4 months, and boom, here it is in theaters. So they moved very quick on this film, and I question why. Why didn't you just take your time and give us a good film? And if it was rushed, and it felt rushed when you watched the movie. If this movie would have been solely centered around the family that got stranded on this island with these dinosaurs, it would have been a very exciting movie. But you incorporated this pharmaceutical company wanting the DNA of these dinosaurs, hiring these mercenaries, and these mercenaries have emotional baggage that we don't address, and all this other foolishness. Then we get this villain out of nowhere that really wasn't out of nowhere, that you knew as soon as he popped up on the screen that he was the villain. So no shocks, no surprises there. But those are really my gripes. But I do have some positives about this film. I did like the dinosaurs. You know, that's what I'm there for. I like the visual effects of the dinosaurs, even though it was very visual effects heavy, unlike the original Jurassic Park, where it was a mixture of the two, Jurassic visual effects and practical effects. It wasn't too many practical effects that I could tell watching the film, you know, with the real dinosaurs there. I'm pretty sure they had something there to stand in when you had close-ups and stuff, but it wasn't a lot. It was very CG heavy. And I get it because you're dealing with dinosaurs. It isn't like you can go pluck one out of the San Diego Zoo and use it as a stand. But, you know, make some real models here. But they really couldn't because a few of them were created, you know, genetically engineered, and especially the big bad at the end. But whatever. But I did like the visual effects, you know. It didn't look too bad. Now, there was some green screen that you could obviously tell in a few scenes that I'm like, my God, this is a 300 or not 300, but I think it's like a $200 million budgeted movie. And to have green screen look like that in some of those scenes is kind of embarrassing. Really embarrassing. But this is supposed to be the positive section of the review. But anyways, those little things kind of bugged me. The action sequences were exciting. There were some exciting action sequences throughout the film. And surprisingly, there were some cool horror elements in the film, especially dealing with the family, because the family, they weren't mercenaries. They weren't trained soldiers or nothing like that. They're just normal human beings like me and you who just got wrapped up in this catastrophic event, and they have to find a way to survive. And I like the horror elements especially in Act 3 involving the family. That was really, really cool. As far as a standout actor here, I got to go with Mahershala Ali. I loved his performance in the film. I mean, this is a two-time Academy Award winner, so it's kind of it'll be kind of weird if he didn't shine, but he did shine. Scarlett Johansson was Scarlett Johansson. To be honest with you, she felt like Black Widow. She felt like Natasha in this movie. The same performance I felt. The vibe that I got from her. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but that's what it was. It was nothing different from her MCU appearances. Jonathan Bailey, who we last seen in Wicked, I thought he did decent, but his character was probably the worst written character I've seen in a Jurassic Park / World film. He just I don't know. It's not Jonathan Bailey. I want to make it clear. It's not him. He did the best he could with what he was given. I saw where there were scenes where I was enjoying his performance, and then the script would change and have him say or do something that was completely ridiculous. And I'm like, really? Him? It's like they couldn't decide if he was going to be John McClane or Rick Moranis from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I didn't know which way they were going to go with his character, so they just said, okay, we'll just make them both. It made no sense. But the standout was Mahershala Ali's character. I liked his character because he was the only character I felt that had a story, that had kind of an arc to his character. The direction, I don't know if I can rag on the direction of this film. Gareth Edwards, he's an interesting director. I'm not the biggest Gareth Edwards fan. That Godzilla film was fine, but there was no Godzilla in it. He directed the one with Aaron Taylor Johnson and Bryan Cranston. That one. That was fine. It wasn't great. It was fine. He also did Rogue One. I guess a portion of it, because depending on what report you read, he was kind of kicked off of that film, and Tony Gilroy took over that film, and that was his vision that we saw. But this film kind of falls in that Godzilla category. The way it's made. The only difference is you do get to see a lot of the dinosaurs, as opposed to Godzilla, where we didn't see any of the of Godzilla in that movie, and the movie was named Godzilla. But neither here nor there. I think he was a mercenary here. I think he was just a hired gun on this film, because they were moving so quickly in production. They had other directors attached to it, and they couldn't get them, and they settled. No disrespect, but they settled on him to go out and shoot it, because I guess he had a reputation of filming fast, and that's basically how he got the job. And he did the best he could. It just didn't work for me. It didn't work for me overall, as far as wanting to be wowed by this film. Overall, just to piggyback off of that, yeah, I wasn't wowed by it. I wasn't enamored by this film. Like, oh my God, Jurassic World is back. Nah, none of that. If they make another one, fine. If they decide not to make any more, fine. And that's where I'm at with it. So Jurassic World Rebirth gets a letter grade of a C minus. Yeah, it's slightly below average. It's one of those movies you'll forget. I struggled. If I didn't keep notes, if I didn't write notes, I would have forgotten about this film, because I forgot a lot about the movie. And when I went over the notes, I was like, oh yeah, that did happen. It's a forgettable movie. Nothing lasting about this film that you would keep with you. I still remember parts of Jurassic Park. I remember parts of the Lost World Jurassic Park. I even remember parts of Jurassic Park 3, even though that wasn't the greatest. There are elements of it that I enjoyed, to the point where it's seared in my brain. Nothing about this movie is seared in my brain. But if you want to turn your brain off for 2 hours, I would recommend going to see it. It's fine. I don't think you're going to leave the theater mad. It's just when you get back home, by the time you get back home, you would have forgotten that you even watched it. I would love to know your thoughts though. Did you enjoy Jurassic World Rebirth, and do you want to see more? Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about subscribing to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube. And like this video as well. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of Jurassic World Rebirth. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.